things as well as others. It's also come out of the mystery schools of the ancient Egyptian type, which are at the core of the Illuminati, okay?
Ew.
And the 22 trillion times a second number has also been validated by modern science when NASA went on a hunt, about 20 or 30 years ago for the fastest vibrating things they could find, and they did some calculations actually to validate Avogadro's number and the use of hydrogen atoms as the vibratory signature of hydrogen atoms as a signal in outer space. And they actually found that there's a particular star they found that vibrated 8 trillion times a second. That was the fastest thing they found.
Wow.
And then they did the math and discovered to themselves that the only reason it could vibrate at 8 trillion times a second was that it was this tertiary three-phase kind of a thing, and so it would have popped off at about 24 trillion times a second. So pretty close to my 22 trillion times.
Man.
And, how the Taoists and the old yogis got it, I don't know. I don't think they counted it.
Well,
but nonetheless, it's pretty close.
If you were smoking what they were smoking, you would have got it too.
There we go. But the issue being that it's so vibratory fast, and it would have to be in terms of this particular model of reality, because bear in mind, light has to be slower than the vibratory nature of your eyes being created in order for your eyes to pick up the light. Sort of makes sense?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, your eyes are not solid matter, or they are, but solid matter is an illusion. But in order for it to pick up the light, it would have to be vibrating at a faster speed level than light, and so on and so on. So in order for you to have a conscious thought, the brain has to create itself in order for that conscious thought to exist, so it has to create itself very fast if the speed of thought is very fast. And we actually find that the way we engineer computers is in a very real sense a mirror image of how reality works in total, even though we may not understand that ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, having been intimately involved in computers for decades, I came to this understanding that indeed this is all quite correct. Now, getting back to the whole thing with David Icke and the energetic nature of the universe here, how do I want to say this? The vibratory frequency is the issue, because we're in what David Icke calls a five-sense reality. Our brains are bound by the input of the five senses. And let's just assume that we actually have this sixth sense, or 7 or 8 or 10, it doesn't really matter. But we have a finite number of sensory inputs. In any given day, we probably will remember, in our short-term memory, 30 or 40 incidents. But given a week, you may not remember any incidents that come in that particular day, because they're not particularly pertinent to you. All of those incidents came in, and all those memories were formed out of a pool that was maybe 5 billion sensory inputs large. So every day you're walking around as this energetic vibrating antenna collecting sensory inputs. And you may get 5 billion of them, but most of them are rather trivial. Oh, my foot itches, oh, that hair moved, the wind brushed up against my nose, that kind of stuff. Most of those things you would not care about to remember, but they give us a clue. The clue is that they are not the totality that reality is. Okay, so the 5 billion inputs that you're getting are nowhere near the total number of inputs that are available to be received in a vibrating reality that is creating itself in 22 trillion times a second.
Yeah, it would be just a small part of it.
It'd be an infinitesimally small part. It's huge to us, 5 billion. Your brain can't handle it. That's why you're lucky to carry 30 of those inputs from all combined into a memory from one day to the next. But it then forces us to consider, if we're only getting 5 billion of the inputs that are coming in, and the number is on the order of trillions times trillions times trillions times the total number of seconds involved in your day, times the total number of impact on your sensory organs per day, then we have to acknowledge there's a vast level of reality beyond the ability of our minds to grasp. And it's not that we're simply ignoring it. It's not a situation of walking down the street and just ignoring that guy weeding his lawn out there. And so thus he doesn't become part of your memory for that day. This is a huge pool of energy, huge pool of inputs that you cannot sense because they're beyond the sensory inputs that you have. So it is likely, and there is some evidence to support the idea that dimensionality is a more meaningful concept than distance. In other words, there's probably far more interesting places, if you will, to go in these vibrating frequency levels than there are places to go within our vast, broad universe.
Yeah, I know you're onto something there.
Okay.
So, something hit me about the vibration thing and health. We talk a lot about health, Clif. So I just kind of got this idea then, if we don't think of something like cancer or fibromyalgia as this stuck kind of round blob stuck in our body or something, right?
Right.
Rather than it's just maybe an imbalance of the vibrations in certain parts of the body that were caused by maybe stress or fear or something like that, it almost makes sense how we could maybe heal from the more other than the physical perspective.
Okay, and that brings up a couple of
other
other
issues.
Does that make sense? Yeah, sure, and I've done it myself. Once I got to this specific stage of reaching an enlightened understanding to where I had a concept of what's known as the stream. Okay, the continuous creation and destruction of reality around you is known as the stream for those people that have gone into the meditation and are able to reach it at a higher level of frequency than the 30 or 40 frames a second mind. Now, you're quite correct. If you view everything from an energetic viewpoint, just the way we could lift an obelisk by altering the frequency, which we could do with sound, and thus make a sonic sled, if you will, you could indeed alter the vibratory nature of your own body to change things. So I had a disease state, a nasty eczema condition that I'd had lived with for 20-plus years. And I noticed after I reached this particular understanding of what are known as the Kalapa. The Kalapa is the indivisible unit of energy that it's just a word that they use in meditation that derives from the time of the Buddha. And it refers to a common understanding of an energetic universe, and that is what is known as the indivisible unit. It's the ultimate pulse. It's all the way down to the lowest level. If you become aware of this in a specific mindset, then you're sitting there and you're thinking, like I am, you think, okay, well, what can I do with this knowledge? After, of course, the big blinding flash and interconnected with everything and all of that kind of crud. Well, one of the things I decided was, well, I don't like this eczema much, it's debilitating, so let's get rid of it. And so I sort of sat there in a meditative state, and instead of doing regular kinds of meditation, I allowed my consciousness to shift around until I found the area within consciousness that appeared to be the vibrational frequency area of where the eczema was being created, because I knew that it was, if my body was being continuously created, then I was continuously recreating 22 trillion times a second the eczema as well.
Yes.
Okay, and also, by the way, our bodies are not small. They're quite large, the energetic bodies. The material condensate, the thick energy that becomes matter, is relatively small. But my body itself at any given time might extend out what we would measure 60, 80 feet. But that's a side issue. But anyway, so I'm sitting there in meditation. I was actually sitting in this hammock chair, so I wasn't connected to the ground or anything. I don't think that was pertinent. But in any event, so I'm moving around in my consciousness, shifting it around, and finally, and I'm not, and this is consciousness in what we would think of as the brain area, not the regular rest of the body. In any event, I found an area where there was this, what looked best to describe it as lumpy cottage cheese. And so I used my mental hands and smoothed it out. And over the course of the next 30 days, I no longer recreated that eczema, and I haven't had any since.
Isn't that terrific? No, I just think that's a marvelous story.
Well, now I'm suffering from arthritis, and I think I've found the particular area for arthritis. And this gets us back up to this interdimensional stuff, okay?
Yeah,
because here's the deal. Unlike the eczema, our arthritis, the type of arthritis I've got that wants to warp your joints aside, I believe to be an example of interfrequency parasitism. because I've discovered within the consciousness where the arthritis is being created.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike the other disease state, which had many different aspects and attributes, if you will, this one has a particular aspect of a small triangular frequency slit that appears to be, if you will, kind of a cut in the material fabric of reality that allows energy to bleed up to a higher level of frequency.
Wow.
So it's been rather difficult to mentally correct. I've been able to get rid of some of the symptoms of the arthritis, but so far have not been able to remove the arthritic parasite core of it that I've been able to locate, if indeed that's what's going on. Bear in mind, this is all, trying to speak in words of stuff that doesn't lend itself to words, and I've been able to actually reduce the arthritis symptoms down to, so far, a single point on spanning 2 fingers.
Mm-hmm.
So
I suspect that so-called psychic healers, that's some of what they may do. I've never got into that because I always felt like I don't want somebody poking around in my consciousness. I'd rather do it myself, but that's just me.
Same here, but it's also an issue of a lot of hard work. And then we discover, too, if you read in a lot of the ancient literature, that some individuals, a smaller percentage than is claimed by themselves, are actually born with advanced capabilities. These are people that are born with specific cities or powers.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there are indeed psychic healers that are out there, but for every probably 2,000 that claim, I would think that maybe one can do it some good days.
Yeah. Hold on to your wallet from the motion picture. Hold on to your wallet.
Yeah.
It is 15 before the hour. We're a little bit behind on a break. This is One Radio Network, Clif I, much more than just forecasting, as you can hear. He thinks about a lot of cool things, and his website is Half Past Human. We're having fun talking with Clif I, who it's an honor to have him on. He comes on from time to time, busy guy up in Olympia, Washington. Well, I don't know. I just assume you're busy, but do you have to keep feeding that computer and just... Does that keep you busy?
No, I'm always busy. There's no question about that. The computer I've got fairly self-feeding. A lot of that is automated now. And actually, there's a bunch of servers, and they just eat bandwidth like mad.
I bet they do. Now, you put out your latest issue 7, right? And I purchased that a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to go outside and read it out in the sun, so I got the PDF file on my screen, right, and I printed it. Well, it came out in like 40 pages of gibberish.
Oh.
So, was that supposed to do that?
No.
Okay.
Should have just printed out just fine.
Well, that's what I thought, but it didn't. It was like in code. So
no,
I thought,
that's some kind of glitch in your PDF printer, because it should just print just fine.
So like you guys didn't get CIA didn't come in and change your code or anything?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. 888-663-6386. We're going to get to some emails and talk about his latest issue number 7. Let's take this call. What's your first name? Where are you calling from? Hello? Sometimes people think they can call up and listen on the phone. Here's an email from Wayne in Missouri. Clif, when you mention the big lie from the 1950s, are you referring to the new scientific knowledge funneled to the secret societies with the shift in language around 1956 when exploration changed to exploitation? How do you see that lie dissolving? So you'll have to explain to us what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's quite correct. I'd noticed, I'd read some of the works of Richard Dolan and others. Dolan's a great historian of current times and has given us a history of the UFOs and the rise of the secret police state, if you will. And so I thought, well, if he's accurate, then there should be some linguistic clues. And I went back and found an area in time in the 50s, between 56 and 57, when we had a shift in the language that was put out by the federal government in what are known as, these days, as a request for proposals. And they would put out these things to corporations saying, hey, you know, we want to pay you money to investigate this, give us some language. Well, the language shifted in 50s from exploring. In other words, you know,